It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. We're live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here at 5th and State. Also live on Facebook and YouTube, having a crucial conversation that Erie needs. And it is with my friend Adam Williams. He is the founder of Rust Belt Legal, co-founder of Pennywise Tax Strategies. And we're going to talk all things Adam today. Good to see you, sir.
I'm very happy to be here on this side of the table.
Yeah, you're always asking the questions, or going through an agenda. Well, let's talk about your show, Maverick Mindset Radio. It's already celebrated 1 year of service. To me, it's like a 1 hour free coaching session on FM radio.
Yeah,
I mean, it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. Because I've paid the hundreds of dollars to go to these seminars and things.
Yeah, I mean, that's when we launched. Was it last March? I don't know. It was.
Yes,
a
it was.
ago.
Yeah.
And I discovered that it's the show, the radio show, the podcast that I wish existed when I was growing my business. It's the information that I wish was more readily available, and we're doing our part to bring it to the people.
So when you get feedback from the show. And again, it's a podcast, so it goes across the country and around the world. What are people saying? Are they saying, "Oh, come on, I can never pull this off," or I mean, is what kind of feedback do you get?
Yeah, so of course the show is Maverick Mindset Radio, and you know this about me. I kind of try to tone down how polarizing I am on the show.
Yes, you. Part of it is because of FCC regulations.
That's the main reason, right? Yeah. But there are things that we say where I am willing in many aspects of my life to draw a line in the sand and say, this is what successful people do and this is what unsuccessful people do. You're either with me or against me, and here is the delineation of that. So yeah, we do get negative feedback, but I expect it, and I'm ready for it, right? Yeah. And there are people that say, "Oh, that would never work," or "I couldn't do that," or and it's really nice doing the show with Ashley, of course, who's worked with me for I think 4 years now, a little over 4 years. So to get her perspective on things too, I think is really helpful. And yeah, we get a ton of really great feedback on the show and the things that we're talking about, and then we get hate also, and I joke that those, of course, that's the people that are living in their mom's basement and driving piece of crap cars and have never actually built anything in their lives. But that's not who we're talking to. We're talking to the people that are creating, that are building, that are creating jobs, that are improving the economy. Like, those are our people. Yeah. And as a side, I don't know if it's a side effect of that or if it's a cause of that, we want to help people build businesses that serve them as the owners of that business. And that was a huge change for me, that I was always hustling and grinding. I was always working for my business, right?
Yeah.
I had done very little other than create a really crappy job for myself. And when I figured out how to flip that switch, that's when I said, I really need to get out there and preach more of this to people, because it's really just about educating. And then, of course,
you're not the victim.
Yeah, absolutely not. Yeah, you are empowered. You made
this decision to start this business or to take it over from your parents or whatever your condition is.
Yeah, you are in the position you're in right now in your life and in your business because of the decisions that you made previously, because of the actions that you took or didn't take, or the things that you did or didn't do. And so many people aren't willing to accept that. They'd rather blame it on other people and blame it on circumstances and the government and the economy. And that's so disempowering. And so we take the different approach that you have control over this. You have more control than you think. And in fact, you'll be a lot more successful, a lot happier, a lot better off if you accept that fact. So that's what we do every Wednesday morning.
It's remarkable. And, I want to talk about the concept of your book, because again, it's kind of fundamentals, right?
Yep.
Tell me the title and what your approach is.
It's funny that you say that, because I literally launched another book yesterday. Okay. But the book that you're talking about, we launched it a little over a year ago. Everything Your Kids Wish You Knew About Owning a Business. It's available on Amazon. It's a bestseller on Amazon in the small business and self-employment categories. And the whole idea was my parents owned a business my whole life, right? I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. So those were the conversations at the dinner table. Those were the conversations on the way to sporting events. I played a lot of travel hockey and things like that. We talked about business and controlling your own destiny as a family. And when I started my main business, which is my law firm, and of course have launched others with varying degrees of success along the line, I felt like I had an upper hand because I was they didn't teach us this in law school, in business school. I got my MBA. They don't teach you entrepreneurship the way it actually needs to be done. So I was thinking, my kids are going to have an even more unfair advantage because they're now a couple generations deep on this thing. And there's lessons that they pick up either from me lecturing or from observing what Jackie and I do in our businesses. And I thought it's another opportunity to let's get this down in writing. Let's share the lessons with people. And probably the best piece of feedback I get on that book is from people I've never met that say, man, I felt like you were talking to me. Because all those problems that you talked about having that you fixed and all the issues that you had in your business that are now better, I have those same problems and those same issues. And you showed me, I don't know if I should be insulted by this, but you kind of showed me that if you can do it, I can do it too, right? But that was the point, is there's nothing special about me. Like, yeah, I have some educational credentials and I grew up in this family, but the reality is most of what I've learned is from going out there and trying it and falling on my face and then getting back up and trying it again. And that lesson gets so lost on people, particularly in Erie. Any failure, any business that doesn't last, that doesn't endure, any mistake that a business owner makes, for some reason in Erie, Pennsylvania, we just love to rub people's faces in that. And the moment that I accepted the fact that, that's just part of being self-employed, it became so empowering. And suddenly the things that people said about me, about my business, about whatever I have going on in my life didn't affect me anymore.
Yeah.
So
I want to not bury the lead. And one of the favorite things that I love about your advice is you really kind of cut through the crap and you say, go sell something.
Yeah.
And I think it occurs to me, it comes from how you, when you were a young person, were an entrepreneur.
Yep.
So when you had extra time and you painted houses, right? I mean,
Yeah.
You weren't always this high-flying attorney. You sold your services and had a financial transaction and lived pretty good.
In business, nothing happens until someone sells something. You can have your logo and your website and your social media and the cutest slogan ever created. None of that matters until you've got a customer willing to exchange money for your goods or services. And we talk about this on the show. People hide out. Oh, I'm busy and I'm working so hard on growing my business. How many clients do you have? Well, none, but I'm working really hard on growing this business. And you see people far more successful than I am. You see this on Shark Tank that, what are your sales? What's your revenue? Well, I won $1 million for 10% of my business, which values it at $10 million, but I haven't actually sold anything yet. I have a really great idea. And I think it's a mindset thing that people think, well, I don't have to put myself out there. I don't have to face the rejection of somebody saying no on this business that I've poured my heart and soul into. So instead, I'm going to hide out. I'm going to create content. I'm going to work on my logo. I'm going to polish and fine tune the thing, even though nobody's actually told me whether they want that thing or not in the way that I'm trying to put it together. So yeah, that's a lot of my advice to people starting out, in the law firm. Oh, should I be an LLC or a corporation or a sole proprietor? I don't know, man. Why don't you get somebody to pay you? And we'll decide if this is even a thing that's worth putting any more time and money into, right? You can tell how much I love being a lawyer on that type of stuff. But that's the point, and I think that's a better lesson there for people is until you go and sell something, nothing else needs to be done in that business.
Yeah, you don't have to have so many impressions on Facebook, on X to sell something. I mean,
unless you've got a magic business that puts food on your table from impressions on Facebook, yeah, none of that stuff matters. Yeah.
Wow. and again, people must say, I love that candor, and they must say, you know what, I don't need you right now.
You know who doesn't love that candor is every marketing vendor I've ever hired.
I bet.
Look at all the traffic to your website. Yeah. Look at my bank account balance. Like, that's the one that matters to me. We have a lot of former vendors and employees who have worked for me in marketing that I don't know, they must think I make it look easy. And they go out and launch their own businesses doing this stuff, and they're focused on the wrong thing, just like so many other business owners are.
Well,
right?
let's talk marketing while we got a second before the break, because I mean, here you are. You're using FM radio to advance your platform.
Yep.
I think that's a pretty smart thing to do.
You're a little biased.
I am very biased, right? But what is your attitude toward marketing? And again, you make a distinction between marketing and advertising, don't you?
Yeah, well, marketing and sales, yeah,
And
for
sales,
sure.
yeah.
So marketing for me, it's about creating a lot of leverage. So yeah, we do the radio show, but it does turn into the podcast, and we use the content in blog posts and emails, and then we cut the video up into shorter pieces of video. So I can sit here for an hour a week and really create a lot of valuable content coming out of that. And yeah, we do take a different approach to marketing because we make sure that there are clear calls to action. We don't do branding. I don't care about getting my name out there, right? When I do something, it's with the intention, the sole intention of bringing customers or clients into our business, and I focus on that. And you'll notice everybody driving around listening to this show right now, look at the next billboard that you pass, and you tell me whether that's a waste of money or not. Chances are, if you're looking at a billboard for Miller Lite, that's one of my favorite ones right now. There's I think it's Miller Lite, and it just says Miller Lite, it's good. That's the billboard. Could you imagine a business owner deciding to spend money on an advertising campaign like that? Probably a pretty broke business owner. So yeah, we take a different approach to it, that it's got to be targeted. It's got to get in front of the right people. It's got to convey the right message. And just like the book, it's got to acknowledge their pain points and agitate them a little bit and show that we've got a solution to this. And I don't think enough people put intention into their advertising. I'll still sponsor my kid's soccer team. Right. But I'm not doing that for marketing. I'm just doing that because it's a nice thing to do, and my kids think it's cool to have our name on the front of the jersey. Mm-hmm. But for so much other marketing that we do, the webinars that we do, and the events that we do, and the emails that we send, we're very intentional about what the point of that campaign, that message, that email is.
And you're measuring.
Oh yeah. So we're working on right now, and you've talked about this on your show. We got the big beautiful bill making its way through the Senate right now. I've done 4 webinars and 1 in-person event all about what's going on in that bill right now. Mm-hmm. So I think our last one is tomorrow or Thursday. I've done the same exact speech 5 times now, but I've changed something a little different each time just to see if that gets a better response rate, or if it gets better feedback, or if it turns into more clients. So yeah, we're constantly measuring and we're constantly testing, but that's what business is all about. Go out and try the thing. There's so many people that would launch a webinar, and the first one's probably going to be a flop, and then they're going to say, well, I can't do any more webinars again. Or we see it with, I hired my first employee and that was a nightmare, so I'm going to keep my business small and never hire another employee. Well, the successful business owners are the ones who, they get punched in the face, they get knocked down, they'll take the standing 8 count, and then they'll get right back into it, right? And that's the message that we try to convey in so many things that we do.
Adam Williams, Rust Belt Legal, as well as Pennywise Tax Strategies here. It's Talk Erie at 4:19. Talk Erie on the Joel Natale Show. We're back here at 4:23. If you have a question for our guest, Adam Williams, 814-679-1080. Adam is the CEO of Rust Belt Legal. It's you and your wife, Jackie Williams, with Pennywise Tax Strategies. Yep. Tell us about that business.
Yeah, so that's a business that we launched about 2 years ago, and it's
what started that?
A lot of pain when it came to filing our taxes. So we worked.
There must be a better way.
That was it. That was there must be a better way. After years of having our own experiences and then working with hundreds of business owners in our law firm, we realized that we like to work with high growth, successful business owners, right? Those are our people. And we found that a lot of them were having the same issues that we were, where their accountant would fill out their tax returns and happy April 15th, you owe the IRS a boatload of money. And it's a complete surprise. It's really discouraging because they don't always have the cash sitting there to pay that bill. And yeah, we said, man, there's got to be a better way. So we didn't invent this concept of tax strategy, but we went out and studied it and got some certifications and have taken different courses and have read more of the tax code than we ever want to talk about. Wow. And found that, oh my gosh, yeah, there are actually proactive things that especially business owners can do to be forward-looking and proactively reduce their tax bills. And we joke that come April 15th, we high-five our clients and they're high-fiving us. We're not swearing at each other. And it's just a much better way of approaching these things. So yeah, we're about 2 years into that business. We just had a new employee start today. We got a couple joining us every single month. We're growing like crazy. This guy just left the IRS to come and work for us, which was one of my goals. I set some interesting goals throughout my life. When we had our food truck, right? I wanted to cater somebody's wedding. I was never able to do that. It was really disappointing. This business, I said, I want to get somebody to leave the IRS and come and join us, and it happened. Today was the day that started, so we're pretty excited about that. So yeah, having a lot of fun with that business. You know, I'm a tax attorney. That's where I started my career years and years and years ago. Jackie's a CPA. And
what's the number one problem or the missed opportunity? Let's say the average HVAC contractor makes.
The average HVAC contractor is too busy being really good at HVAC stuff. They're not looking at their numbers. They aren't paying attention. They can't tell you how much revenue they bring in. Can't tell you how much profit that they keep because they're focused on their thing, right? They're focused on keeping the lights on and paying their employees and marketing and growing their business. That the financial stuff, as long as there's enough money in the bank, they're like, okay, right? So we learned through our business, it's so important to work with experts to focus on that stuff, right? So that's the biggest thing is they just don't know their numbers, and there's a good reason for it. We're busy. We're doing other stuff. Right. So that's mistake number one. We don't need to get into crazy strategies and entity structure and, Augusta rule and home office and captive insurance companies. We don't need any of that.
Put your headquarters in the Grand Caymans or anything like that.
Yeah, we have one client who moved to Puerto Rico to save his taxes. We have a lot of clients that have moved to Florida to save on their taxes.
Well,
and
that
cool,
does make sense.
Yeah, that's a cool strategy if you want to live in Florida. But yeah, I mean, just so I'll tell you a story. My son and I went to the NASCAR race in Michigan on Sunday. It was the coolest experience because we actually got to sit in one of the pit boxes, literally with the owner of the NASCAR team. So there's 2 rows of seats up in this thing. We're right on pit road. And in front of us was the crew chief and 2 other engineers. They had 9 computer monitors open in front of them, right? And everybody's got their opinions on NASCARs. It's a bunch of rednecks driving fast and turning left. But the amount of data that they were looking at during this race, and then they had a system where every pit stop, they'd pull the tires off, somebody would scrape the extra rubber off, they'd test the hardness at 5 spots on the tire, fill out a little card, and then somebody would walk it up to the top of the pit box and hand it to the crew chief so they could analyze the different adjustments to the suspension and the air pressure and blah, blah, blah. So it's like real-time data coming at these guys. And I'm sitting there the whole time. I'm not even watching the race. I'm staring at these spreadsheets they have open in front of them because that's the really successful business owners are able to extract themselves from working in the business 24/7, and they're able to work on it. This crew chief is not driving the car. He's not replacing the tires. He's not putting the fuel back in. He's up there looking at the numbers and making decisions on strategy and managing the team, which is what business owners should be doing. Right. And it was so cool to see This team came. The guy's name is Zane Smith. Nobody knows who this driver is. He's relatively new to the sport, not super popular, not super famous. Really nice guy. So he came in for one pit stop and they blew it. Like, things just took too long. They pull out of the pits and he dropped way back. So this guy jumps down out of the pit box and he's screaming at the team, "We practice this every week, and you don't want me micromanaging you, but when you blow it like that, I got to come down here and micromanage you." Next pit stop, they nail it. He leaves in first place coming out of the pits.
Oh, wow.
So it was such a great lesson in running a business, looking at the data and making decisions and motivating the team. It was just so cool to see that. And I think if the more time you're able to spend on those things as a business owner.
How about having that person though that can translate so that the owner can understand what the numbers are saying?
Oh, exactly. Yeah. I mean,
just even like knowing that are you 1.1x over 1, on your income and expense.
So
right?
we were talking to the owner of the team, and he jokes with the crew chief. It's the first time he sat in that pit box because they own 3 cars on this team. So he said, "Hey," he's talking to the crew chief, "just so you know, there's a lot of knowledge up here in my brain." And I looked at him, I said, "Does any of it have to do with race cars?" He said, "No, absolutely not."
That's remarkable. We're talking to Adam Williams here, Rust Belt Legal. Okay, I've got to go to break, but you mentioned a second book. When is it out yet?
So it came out yesterday. It's available on Amazon. If anybody follows our radio show, Maverick Mindset Radio on Facebook, or follows me on Facebook, we're going to be talking about this a lot. It's called Building Wealth, Building Legacy. Came out yesterday. I co-authored this thing with Kevin Harrington from Shark Tank, and it was a really exciting opportunity for us. And there's a really great chapter in there that I contributed to about tax strategy and knowing your numbers.
Fantastic. We'll take a break. Adam Williams will join us after the news at the bottom of the hour. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. 4:34. It's the Joel Natale Show live from our Kingdom Financial Group studio here. And we are talking to a man in motion, Adam Williams. He's the founder of Rust Belt Legal, co-founder of Pennywise Tax Strategies. I want to talk about some of, because you're always moving, and more you're speaking to different audiences and things. Yeah. And I want to start with a very impactful conversation that you had at Erie Homecoming. It's got to be a couple years now.
Yeah, that was a year and a half ago now, I think.
Was that what it was?
Yep.
And what was the topic, and what kind of splash did you make at Erie Homecoming?
So that I decided probably a couple months before that I wanted to do more speaking. I really enjoy it. Mm-hmm. I think I'm pretty good at it. And I always get really good feedback from audiences. So I just started looking for more speaking opportunities, and the Erie Homecoming opportunity came up. And what they were trying to do at that one was just show that there are entrepreneurs in Erie doing cool things. And they had invited some entrepreneurs to come in and tell their story. And frankly, I personally don't find my story all that interesting. I'd rather get up there and add a lot of value to people in the audience and teach them something, right? And so one of the core values in our business is figure it out, right? We're a small business. A lot of people on our team wear a lot of hats, and that's literally what our clients ask us to do every single day. I have a problem or I have an opportunity. I got a million other things going on. You've got expertise, so you figure this out for me, right? That's what we do.
You're not really suffering that young one that seems to always want you to hold their hands.
Yeah, exactly. So
it's like, yeah.
So the lesson that I wanted to teach was, again, I think Erie especially, but a lot of cities are like this. Erie has a really the wrong attitude towards failure. That there are people in this town that have made mistakes in business and politics and whatever, and we're completely unforgiving of that. And I wanted to teach the lesson that failure doesn't come from striking out, right? Failure doesn't come from trying something and having it not work. Failure really only comes from not trying, or from giving up, or from not learning the lesson. Those are the only three ways to fail. Anything short of that is a journey, is part of the journey towards success and becoming successful. And what happened at Homecoming is I told the story about Tony Hawk, a famous skateboarder. And there's a really good documentary about Tony and his life and his professional accomplishments called Until the Wheels Come Off. And in the opening scene of this documentary, he's got this warehouse with this massive half pipe, and he keeps climbing up to the top of the half pipe and trying a trick and falling over and over and over again. And it's a very emotional scene, because this is the best skateboarder in the world, right? Most people could not name another skateboarder on the face of the planet.
Exactly.
We all know this guy's name, and the intro to his story about his life and his success and putting himself on the map is just him falling and getting hurt over and over and over again. And I wanted to teach the lesson that's entrepreneurship. We climb to the top of the ramp, we drop in, and we fall on our face over and over and over. But the people who become successful, the people that become the Tony Hawk of business, get back up and they climb to the top of the half pipe and they go again. But what resonated with a lot of people at that talk was something I learned from trial attorneys, that I can get up there and I can lecture and I can explain it just like I explained it to you. But the lesson sticks a lot better if you actually demonstrate. And there's a scene in that documentary, that opening scene, where he is laying on the ground and the camera goes right up into his face and he is screaming expletives. So I laid on the stage at Homecoming and screamed expletives as I was telling this story.
The old chamber folks probably weren't prepared for that.
The crazy thing was the keynote speaker at that event was like a military general or something.
I remember him. Yeah, I interviewed him.
And he gave a speech that was like, I never swear. I'm very respectful. I'm very professional. Right. And then Adam Williams gets up there and drops a record number of F-bombs at a Chamber of Commerce event. And I don't mean any disrespect towards that guy.
Yeah.
Nobody remembers anything that he talked about at that event. Mm-hmm. But the talk that I gave and the lessons that I taught on entrepreneurship through that demonstration, people are talking about it.
We're still talking about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, a year and a half later.
And,
wow.
And he was a great guy and a great leader and really taught some really valuable stuff. But that's why I enjoy speaking so much, is because I've found that through that I can really have a huge impact. And, when we had the law firm and I would meet with clients one-on-one and I'd help them out, that was cool. But if I can get up in front of a room of 500 or 600 people and share with them the experience and the hard-earned knowledge that I've gained, I maximize that impact. Like I amplify it in a way that I wasn't able to when I was just practicing law. So I've gotten a lot out of that. And we're booking, I was on the road the entire month of April, I think. I'm already booking events for September and October of this year. We'll be traveling all over the country to help business owners become better business owners, because I've been very fortunate in my life that we have achieved success in our business, right? We've made the law firm 500 list 5 or 6 years in a row. We were on the Inc. 5000 list, which only 3 companies in Erie made that list last year. We were certified as a great place to work, which I think only 3 or 4 companies in Erie did. So like we've got some credibility, and we've got some experience, and we've got the trophies to prove it. And it's really important for me to get out and share that message, because I believe that entrepreneurship is the absolute best way to achieve success in your life, whether it's financial success or how you want to spend your time or the impact that you want to have. I don't think there's a better way to do that than entrepreneurship. The problem is none of us are taught how to do that. School doesn't teach us. Even if we were raised in entrepreneurial families, for the most part, there's things that we learn, but there isn't always a structure or a system. Sometimes that success happens by accident. I've screwed up enough times that I know what works and what doesn't work, and have developed a little bit of a system around that. And I'm able to coach and speak and educate about it.
Yeah, talk about the system, because you talk a lot about that on Maverick Mindset Radio, which is going to be on tomorrow morning at 9, every Wednesday at 9 here on Talk Erie. Do you feel that that systems are sometimes poo-pooed by small business people just because they've got to get that widget turned and, they've got that order to fill?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I believe that there's a group of entrepreneurs out there that just don't think they have the time to sharpen the saw, we say, right?
Okay.
So they don't think they have the time to step away from the business long enough to implement a system. So I think that's problem number 1. Problem number 2 is, as entrepreneurs, we get shiny object syndrome. So the next thing, the next software, the next marketing campaign, the next hire, the next item that we're going to sell, that's the one thing that's going to make everything better. It never actually works like that. But it's
its own flywheel. So you feel like you have momentum because you made that purchase, or you hired that guy.
Yeah, but actually the guy that was starting today, I was telling him that as an example, one thing, and you and I have talked about Jim Collins a lot.
Sure.
Wrote Good to Great and Beyond Entrepreneurship,
Built to Last,
and Built to Last. Yeah, and I think he taught at Stanford, and they did this research on what makes companies successful and what makes them last. And one of the things that they uncovered, that Jim and his research team uncovered, is that successful businesses have core values. They have things that are ingrained in them that they will not change, and they hire and fire and train around these core values. Interestingly, there is no objective right set of core values. Even Enron had honesty and integrity as a core value, right? But companies that take the time to discover their core values and who run their businesses around them are more successful. Well, that takes time, and a lot of times it takes someone with expertise to help you uncover what your core values are, because you don't really create them. They sort of happen naturally, although a little bit by design as well. And I wasn't taught that in business school. Again, it was something that I got out and said, well, gosh, yeah, it turns out another one of our core values is take your job seriously, but don't take yourself too seriously. That is not a core value that's going to work in a lot of other businesses out there, but it works really well in ours. We have a core value of figuring it out, like I said. We have a core value of finding the truth. We have a core value of being curious and not judgmental, which is something that we took from Ted Lasso, who took it from Walt Whitman, I think.
Yeah.
So those are the things that we think really separate us and that make our team great and make us want to work together with each other. But it took us time to figure that out. I mean, it was a 6 or 12 month process to get down to those 4 where we said, yeah, this is it. These are the things that really matter to us. Everything else is secondary to this.
Yeah.
Everything and many other things that are secondary, they're aspirational. Whereas our core values are things that we have right now, right? And that was something that I was probably 10 or 15 years into my career and into my business before I realized how important something like that was, because I was so busy hustling and grinding and marketing and selling and trying to keep the lights on and keep money in the bank that it, kind of lose sight of those things. Or maybe.
It's kind of a how then shall we live? I mean, or how are we going to make this work? Collins talks about being a level 5 leader.
Yep.
And you, if something goes well, you defer to the team for the success. Yeah. If something goes poorly, you take the responsibility
every time.
Talk about that. How does that resonate with you?
We've
kind of
had,
that servant leadership thing.
I think, we've, and I think actually it was one of our recent shows where we talked about leaders eat last.
Yeah.
That leadership and management, I have a degree in business management. No one wanted to hire me coming out of college with that degree because I had never actually managed anything. That is a skill that I personally have been putting a lot of time and effort at becoming better at. Like I think I have some natural leadership capabilities and tendencies and skills, but it's one of those areas where I had to get better in order to grow the business. So I learned how to take responsibility for things. I learned how to, probably the biggest thing that I've learned how to create a vision big enough that the people who work for me, their vision can fit within that. My goals are so big. We had a potential employee come to us a couple weeks ago that makes way more money than any employee that we've ever had. She works for a $500 million company right now. And I sat with her for 2 days for a job that doesn't exist in our business. And we finished that 2 days and I said, well, I want you here. So our next meeting is we need to figure out what the job looks like, because I know that you can fit in and I know you can help us get where we're going. Now the pressure's on me as a leader to make that work, right? Mm-hmm. Like I've got to create a position for someone that didn't even exist, whose skills are just really out of this world, but who sees our culture and who sees what we're building and is excited about it. Wow. She wasn't looking for a job.
Right.
She wasn't applying places. She just heard about us through somebody else and met with us for 2 days and said, I want to be a part of this. And man, as a leader, that is so fulfilling, right? Like that to me says we're doing something right, that we're really creating something great here. So yeah, I've spent a lot of time learning leadership and learning management in a way that matters in a small business. Leading myself first. We talk a lot on our show about discipline and structure. Those are not things that I'm particularly good with until recently, I really started, and now I am focused and disciplined, and I appreciate that structure because it actually ends up creating freedom for me in a really weird way.
Let's take a minute on that because you're a big advocate of block scheduling and even as you're building these businesses and they're quite successful, you spend a lot of time with your kids, going to Build-A-Bear with Penny, right?
Yeah.
Going to the race with your son.
Yep.
How do you do all that? Again, because guys are like probably screaming at the radio, I don't have time.
Yeah.
I can barely make it to the ball game.
So I talk about, let's talk about your priorities. And you can tell me what your priorities are, but there's 2 things that I can look at to tell you whether you're telling me the truth or not. I will look at your bank account and your calendar, and that will tell me where your priorities are. Mm-hmm. So you can tell, oh, my kid's a priority, my family's a priority, my business is a priority, my health is a priority. My credit card, I have a credit card that the only charges that hit that card are DoorDash and my Peloton subscription. If that doesn't tell you an awful lot about how I'm living, right? So I think it comes down to this. You only have 168 hours in a week. Every single one of us, whether you're an entrepreneur or not, we have more than 168 hours of stuff to do in that week. So it's really important, one, to decide what your priorities are and what you're actually going to focus on. And you must very proactively and intentionally say no to everything else. And that's hard. I say no to a lot of things and it makes a lot of people angry at me and they get very judgmental of me. But listen, I got goals. I got things I got to focus on. So I budget those 168 hours and I create a block calendar around that to make sure I'm spending enough time on the things that actually matter to me. I could show up at my office 7 days a week and spend hours and hours and hours every single day doing nothing but answering emails.
Oh my.
That's not really going to move the business forward. Mm-hmm. That's not going to move the needle on the things that we're trying to accomplish. So I need to say no to my emails and have somebody else handle them for me so that I can focus on the next opportunity, the next acquisition, the next speaking engagement, the next marketing. Like those are the next leadership thing that I have to do in the business. That's my focus right now. And I have to say no to everything else. So for me, my health is very important. So I make sure that I'm carving out enough time for that. And yeah, my kids, I want to make sure that all of the work that we're putting in, and we do make sacrifices in our lives, I want to make sure that my kids see the reward for that. Yeah. I had a very emotional moment over the weekend that my son graduated from 8th grade, and we hosted the 8th grade graduation party at our house. And not to brag, but I'll brag. Our house is sick, right?
Yeah.
And it was a pool party, and these kids had so much fun, and everybody had such a great time. And all I could think about was when he was in preschool, the piece of crap Jeep that I drove. That I'd pull him into preschool, and there are parents hopping out of their Escalades and their Suburbans wearing sweatpants, dropping these kids off, and I'm wearing a suit, and I shut the door on my Jeep, and pieces of rust fall off, and I'm thinking, what am I doing wrong here? What am I not getting? And to go from that to now 8th grade graduation, we're hosting the party, we're having a great time, and we're doing like this party was out of control. We had it catered, and there were bartenders, and it was such a beautiful thing that I had so much, I still have so much gratitude for that. I get emotional just thinking about it, of like, it wasn't always like this. And it took a lot of, sacrifice is a difficult word. I don't think that's the word I want to use, but it took a lot of decision making and saying no to a lot of things so that we could say yes to the things that really mattered. And I do that when we're talking about the calendar.
Well, and you identified what matters.
Yes.
You wrote it down. You were intentional. You made choices.
Yes. And I think that's difficult for people to do. It's difficult for people to decide what they want. First of all, I don't think that's something that a lot of children are trained with.
Right.
We are told what we should want out of life.
Yeah.
Go to college, become a doctor or lawyer. I believe that very rarely do kids say, oh, I want to do this crazy out there thing, and the parents are super enthusiastic about it, right? Like, we say we support them, but that ability to decide what we want for ourselves is really beat out of us at a young age. And don't even get me started on education and making mistakes in school, where you get a 70% and you're basically getting a D in the class. If I get it right 70% of the time in my business, I'm killing it, right? So yeah, you making those decisions and then creating the systems and the boundaries to stick with those decisions. Because in the moment, it's hard, right? Yeah. Something new comes up, and it's like, well, I'm working on this other project, but here's this new thing sitting here that looks really exciting and could be really good for us. And I have to say to whatever this thing is, check in 6 weeks.
Right.
Check in 3 months. That's a tough thing to do, because I tend to move at light speed on a lot of the things that I do. So I think that's become a really important skill, is my ability to say no to things that aren't directly related to the outcomes I'm trying to achieve.
We're talking to Adam Williams. I got like 2 minutes left, and I want you to weigh in on being able to thrive your businesses in Erie, Pennsylvania. What are the pluses? What are the minuses? Like I said, I have 120 seconds.
Oh man, I need more time than that. We love having a team here. I think you alluded to this earlier, that am I educated and trained and licensed as an attorney? Yes. Is it a white collar business? Yes. But I bring that Rust Belt blue collar mentality to it that doesn't exist in other places. I travel a lot, and I go to Chicago or Miami or New York or LA, and there's a different vibe to this region that doesn't exist elsewhere, right? Like is
it an advantage to you?
Well, absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
As long as you acknowledge it and understand that it's there. Yes, it's 100%.
There's a grit there.
Yes. I think for us, we've been very fortunate that we've created the type of business that most of our revenue comes from outside of Erie, Pennsylvania.
Amen.
We use that to create jobs. We use that to invest and donate and do really cool things in this community and have more of an impact. I think that's been really important, that we couldn't have built what we're building right now if we only focused on Erie, Pennsylvania. Now, the challenges, of course, are we can't recruit everybody that we need to here. The guy that started today is based out of Michigan. We have employees across the country and in other countries, frankly, that we had to be able to go remote with a lot of the stuff that we do, because there just isn't the talent pool here for what we need. Plus, you'll be shocked to learn that not everybody in Erie wants to work for Adam Williams after they meet him. So I think that's been challenging. But I've always preferred that big fish in a small pond thing. I lived in Pittsburgh coming out of law school, and I didn't enjoy it. I wasn't making a difference. I wasn't having an impact. And Erie's the type of town where if you make the decision that you're going to make people's lives better, you can do it here more than you can in a lot of other places.
Yeah, there is an ability to really make impact.
Yeah.
Because of that 1 degree of separation. Everybody knows everybody. You went to prep.
Yep.
Your built-in network right there.
Yep,
I mean,
absolutely.
When you were 18, you started with a network.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's kind of cool.
Plus, it's hard to beat the cost of living here.
Oh, my gosh.
I'm like anybody else. I go on vacation and I pull up Zillow and I start looking at houses, and it's like, nope, I'm sticking with Erie.
Well, you can learn so much more every Wednesday morning at 9. Also on the podcast, on the YouTube channel, Maverick Mindset Radio, Adam Williams, Rust Belt Legal, and Pennywise Tax Strategies. Again, if you're a high wealth individual and you're still paying the IRS too much, at least have a conversation. Good night.
If you're sick of the surprise tax bills, come and find us.
Beautiful. Thank you, Adam. Appreciate it. It is 5 minutes in front of 5.